Hi guys, I am sincerely excited. This Suzuki GSX-S1000GX, and from now on I'm just going to call it the GX, is likely what has been promised by Suzuki. Now look, these things barely happen. If a manufacturer promises you something within their marketing slogans, usually it's bullcrap, but not here. Suzuki had told us that the GX was going to be a combination of a V-Strom 1050 and a pretty sporty brother GSX-S1000GT. I believe that this bike here is really the best of two worlds. Big adventure world and a sports, sort of sports touring, but I'm gonna still call it a sports world. One of my first thoughts was how close it was going to be to a pretty unique BMW S1000XR, and I would say that in some ways this can be a much better bike for some of you. For some of us. And let me explain for who. So this is the first time that I forgot to actually introduce myself in the first sentence. I am Witold. I've ridden all big and mid-size adventure motorcycles that are currently on the market with the purpose of reviewing them for you guys and finding the best ones in given areas. One might say that I found a higher purpose in this, and that one would be me. So here we are, and I'll tell you everything that I feel is worth sharing about this new GX. So it looks more like a sports bike, but at first contact it reflects two feelings. One is my upper body feels pretty comfortable, surprisingly upright and like at home. And second, of course, my legs are not as comfortable as on a traditional adventure motorcycle. This one here is a real crossover, or one might say a hybrid, but in the raw meaning of this word, so a combination of two different things. The seat is pretty soft and spongy, which I like. The handlebar is wider than you would expect from something that looks that sporty. Sitting is quite okay, also since the bars are high enough for my liking. But perfect seating may only happen on a 7G11 electric office chair like mine, or Rolls-Royce office chairs from Power Seats, and actually they had and they may have again in their lineup of electric chairs, those Rolls-Royce ones again. Check them out. Now sitting on the GX, there is a still slight forward bend, which is helpful at higher speeds when 152 horsepower of this 999 cubic centimeters engine with 4 cylinders in line when it tries to lift the front wheel. Now one thing here that may not match the experience is the handlebar switches. They're just about the first feelings. On the one hand, they control in a pretty easy way this nice display with a digital but analog looking rev counter and all the settings. The start the engine switch is a push start switch, which I like very much, as the bike starts itself after just pressing it once without holding. Now great stuff, but those switches feel cheap and shitty, especially the indicator switch that we use all the time. It feels as if it was empty inside and flimsy and generally of low quality, and the sound is matching that experience. Not a big deal, but I started with a very sweet words, so now it should be a little bit healthier. So setting off after the initial impressions of the posture on the bike and first contact, the sound of the engine is smooth and deep, so it's pretty exciting. In fact, the seat is at 84.5 centimeters, but it feels even lower as I'm able to flat foot on both sides, and the bike generally feels low to me as I'm used to adventure motorcycles more. But don't mind it. The windscreen is surprisingly well matching this bike with how quickly it reaches speeds, and then you you appreciate being bent a little bit forward, then the windscreen does its job fine. There's a lack of annoying turbulences. It is rather loud around the helmet, but somehow I may ride really fast and not be bothered by the windstream so much. Surprising up to some point. Maybe it's the overall excitement, but likely not only that. It just works in its highest settings, and 140 kilometers on a highway is better than anticipated in terms of wind protection. And here Suzuki mentions a height adjustable windscreen, and right, it is, but you've got to unscrew it and then screw it back in one of the 3 positions available. So come on, for this price and this level of being a cool motorcycle, we don't have a truly adjustable screen on the fly? Come on, shame. Maybe I'm picky, but this is just basic stuff to me. Just like the seat height, which shouldn't be a big deal, but here it's not adjustable in terms of its height. Anyhow, once you set it, both of these the way you like them, you're gonna be good, I guess. I'm 1 meter tall, by the way. Gear lever and rear brake levers are in fine spots, and there are no issues for me with operating them. Also unusual, lucky this time. The engine is warm, So let's unleash the fire now. Here it's very important what settings you've got your GX in, as you may play with riding modes that mostly influence reaction to throttle, and there are 3 of them called A, B and C. And finally someone made good sense of them, naming them further. So A like active, B like basic, and C like comfort, so basically a rain mode. Active is the most active, but the differences between this one and the B aren't as huge as far as I can tell, so I just would keep it in A. It's a little bit maybe less jerky in B when you're opening and then closing throttle like on a roundabout or in some type, but not a big deal, I would say. But then regardless of this, there is a separate traction control setting from off, completely off, through settings of 1 till 7, and damn, I am not sure I get it, as it will change with the change of riding modes anyway, so A, B and C, but you may change it then independently again, and I'm not sure how to assess all that, what to make of all that. Anyhow, what you need to know is that setting number 7 makes this a 50cc moped that cannot accelerate. What a strange feeling when a 152 horsepower and 106 Newton meters of torque motorcycle accelerates like shit. Well, it's just that traction control. But it also won't let you use all the power and grip until you reach the setting number 1. So you skip everything in the middle, but then in some situations in that number 1 setting, the rear wheel may slip even too much. So there should be a setting of 1.5, because number 2 is also not letting you use all the power, and you feel that it's not going the way you want it to go. So just beware that unless you're in 1, you're actually not having the full performance of the bike, and actually technically if you still have this stupid traction control on, in any settings, it's still not going to be giving you as much as the bike is capable of. Well, obviously if you switch it off, it might be a little hard to live. Anyway, I'm not a fan of this. I don't think it's calibrated correctly entirely. There is room for improvement. I mostly would keep it in 1, and then we may use the engine mostly as it wants to be used. I think that's the closest one. So rock and roll and reach the higher RPM. But in fact, not necessarily, as its low RPM range isn't that bad also. Different gears are actually providing different ratio, unlike in, for example, BMW S1000XR, and are also long enough, unlike in Kawasaki Versys 1000. Of course, I'm exaggerating slightly, but still, at lower RPM, it's not a volcano, as it's a 4-cylinder engine, but it's still fine, as it quickly reaches those higher RPMs since the gears aren't extremely long. So it's a pretty good end result for a 4-cylinder 1-liter engine. At higher RPM, it's really juicy, but it also vibrates to the point of me not seeing anything in the mirrors, and it's transferring that to my feet through the foot pegs despite the rubber on that. But at highway speeds and medium RPM, then it's all good and smooth in terms of vibrations. I wouldn't say that there is any issue in the end. But what do I really want to tell you is that this engine somehow is the main reason for this bike being exciting to me and making me ride like crazy, recklessly, and in a way that one may describe as perhaps looking for trouble. I've got to admit that it is encouraging, and its flexibility makes me feel that I've always got enough margin, power margin. It's not crazily explosive like, let's say, 1290 engines from KTM that are 2-cylinder V-shaped engines at lower and mid RPMs, but there's something in it. It just makes you accelerate, and it's not even about reaching the red line at all in this case. The mid-range is just so fun to me, and it's just so comfortable to use that it amazes me. I really like this engine, and it also doesn't get too hot, and fans do switch on, doing a very good job of cooling the system down so that there is no heat coming to my legs, my butt, or anywhere else. The transmission is fantastic, there is smooth operation of this gear lever, the clutch grabs gradually, the quick shifter is just as good as one of the best that I have tried actually very recently in a BMW F900GS. In the GX Suzuki, there is little resistance, not much travel of the gear lever. There's a clear click using the quick shifter, and there's very quick engagement of a next gear both up and down. And this has to be one of the best quick shifters that I have ever tried. Really good and complete package here that got itself a fan. Me. I really am happy with the performance of this GX and truly like it for that. And good, after this good, there is one more good, which is the suspension. The GX has electronically adjustable semi-active suspension that's done well. It's got 3 modes and a possibility of initially setting its preload separately, also from the onboard computer for a solo rider too, an automatic that is supposed to analyze the current situation and adapt. Nice, but having those 3 specific modes separately is also great, and it's simple. It is soft, medium and hard, so S, M and letter H. And once you know it's simple what those letters mean, makes all the sense in the world, and it just works. It works making this bike either soft, either medium soft or harder. However, hard is less stiff than I would expect. It's manageable, while soft is really very comfy. I feel similarly comfy to BMW S1000XR of the second, so generally the comfortable generation. Now, this suspension here in the GX has 15 centimeters of travel in the front and in the rear, and it gets a bit floaty at times in the soft mode when you push it and brake hard here and there, but it's really fine for me, keeping the bike under control, while medium may be what we all like the most, so a very good compromise. I am very happy with the comfort levels on this bike, especially in combination with that comfortable seat. No need to be afraid of any potholes at all. And I mean, damn it, this is very unexpected to me to find a Suzuki that's so well-rounded and really doing things great in so many areas. I really like this motorcycle, and I would love to match it against the KTM 1290 Super Duke GT, but KTM are assholes, and there's no test bike of this model anywhere for years now. I feel that GX may come on top in many direct comparisons. Now, okay, let me cool down a little bit with the compliments and just add that the bike is stable suspension-wise. Front end dives a little bit, but not more than I would be able to comfortably accept. And it does well when riding over bumps in a lean, so in the corners. And now there is a magical thing to mention. Suzuki gave us another promise, and they delivered again. On their website, I noticed them saying that there is a system called SRAS that's allegedly doing something on very uneven roads, like this one here. It's loosening the suspension, making it softer, also smoothing the throttle operation. And my bum, this might have been the smoothest ride on such a crappy surface of all times. Out of motorcycles that have been here, likely only BMW R1250 GS, maybe the 1300 too, Triumph Tiger 1200 GT have been so nice or close to being so nice to ride on the surface. This GX really just glides above all that mess on the ground. And this is stunning. I have no clue how they've done it. I really am in complete shock at all times when this happens, and I'm so impressed, and this is amazing stuff. Like, really, congratulations, Suzuki. I wouldn't expect to say that. I really don't see any weak points in suspension unless you'd like it to be hard as a rock. It's a maybe even 9 out of 10 from me here. And before I tell you how it turns, I'll head to brakes, as this is one spot that I would like to have improved. On the one hand, it's all fine with them. They slow the bike down successfully, and they are strong enough to not cause any stress or hesitation. But this bike is so stimulating that I would find myself in some exciting situations where I wish I had just a bit more powerful brakes that would grab earlier, giving me a little bit more control and confidence. I mean, don't get me wrong, everything's technically fine with the brakes. With the front one, the rear one could be calibrated better, as it's not the most effective, but it's still useful. But I just wish that they would give me more confidence. Again, I'm talking about some of the probably top level, to the point that I'm not sure what to pinpoint in terms of a possibility of getting improved specifically. I believe it's about how hard the lever is and how quickly the front brake grabs, the combination of those. I'd like the system to be less rubbery and it would be then in line with the powertrain and the suspension. That would be a perfect situation. Now, handling at low speeds, you will see a difference between the GX and traditional adventure motorcycles, with the center of gravity and the whole bike being much lower than in the case of the adventure ones. Here it's well balanced, and I'm able to ride perfectly straight at crawling speeds, so filtering the stopped traffic is very, very good, and I appreciate it. Making U-turns is also fully under control, and I'm just sending my compliments here. At slightly higher speeds, there is like a barrier when the lean gets introduced, when you have to start leaning left or right in order to turn the bike. There is like a barrier in the movement, in the lean, that you need to overcome to get onto the other side and then be able to keep leaning further. It's like in the beginning, the bike prefers to stay up and ride straight and only lean a little bit. So you need to power through that barrier, and then you're free to lean further. It is manageable, but this is a new behavior for me, I guess. Once you're past that, it's rather neutral, and when riding in a steady lean, braking and accelerating doesn't put the bike out of balance at all. So I'm happy here. And also, you somehow realize that in those circumstances it is different than most adventure motorcycles, and it gives an impression of being a sports bike. It may also be due to the position on it, but there's something different. Not worse, but different, but also not necessarily so much better. It's different. It's fine to switch directions quickly enough, and it feels really light when doing so, despite weighing 232 kilograms with fuel. So actually it's not very heavy. I could almost bench press it. Nah, no, not yet, but give me a few months. By the way, when you're sitting on a bike, it feels rather compact and manageable, which with this kind of bike feels refreshing and nice. At higher speeds, it appears to behave very similarly to what happens at lower speeds. So a little delay at the border when leaning, but if you push through, it's doing very nice things and turning effectively. Again, I do like it overall, and I do not necessarily love how all motorcycles handle, so it's a big deal for me with this GX to say very, very good things about it. One last thing here in the topic of handling at high speeds would be visible wobble when accelerating hard at higher speeds. It's there, and it replicates what BMW's 1000XR used to do, especially in its first generation. That I am not cheering for, and I hope Suzuki takes a look at that, especially as all that is happening with no passenger or side cases as additional load in the back. What I also do like is that it feels planted. The front rim is 17 inches and so is the rear one. The front tire is of 120 millimeters, while the rear is fat at 190. The fuel tank holds 19 liters, so not bad, and the mirrors are decent in terms of size, but just too low for me. I would definitely install some razors here as to look at what's going on behind me, and on the sides I've got to look sort of down, already leaning slightly forward. In some circumstances I would rather just turn my head to the side to look, which is not perfect. What I'm not sure about is the front light design. It's not as terrible as some other Suzuki models, but I'm not in love with it, and I wish it had some more character in that area. Yes, it is LED, no, it's not cornering, but there are handguards, center stand, cornering ABS, cruise control that may be used with a quick shifter and it won't disengage, and there may be heated grips that look sort of like an accessory, and they are really bloody expensive for what they are. That's strange, but whatever. There is no keyless access that I love. I mean, I love when it's there, but all right. There is one push start, which is better than nothing. Of course, no keyless fuel cap too. There are no radars here in the front or rear, and no tire pressure monitoring system as far as I could confirm. And if that's true, which it seems to be, then that's a disappointment in my eyes in terms of equipment. But at least people are taking a peek at the bike on the streets, and it quickly reacts to throttle, so revving it up when stationary or when just rolling, it works good. This is what I call a proper implementation of ride-by-wire throttle. Unlike in Ducatis and Moto Guzzi's, and of course I'm perfectly aware that none of us here is really interested in revving their motorcycles next to long-legged pedestrians walking nearby, so let's just say that I'm thinking out loud here. I would give it an aftermarket exhaust to make it sound even deeper, not necessarily louder, but to give it a nicer tone. Totally worth any kind of money, I think. Now, let me sum it up, as I believe that this can be a really worthy alternative to large adventure motorcycles that comes with a 4-cylinder engine with plenty of power up there in the range and also in the mid-range that is really comfortable and even astonishing in terms of suspension. It's got good handling, there are useful working brakes, it's easy to work with electronics on it, and there's not bad of a position with just a bit of a more demanding knee angle. But in return, there is a sporty feeling, and fast corners may give you a different feeling than on a traditional adventure motorcycle. And that's interesting. And for the first time ever, I think, it's giving me thoughts of there being a lot of sense in having two motorcycles at the same time. A proper adventure bike, in my case at least, fully comfortable and competent, and this thing, to feel like on a sports bike and get that different sensation in the corners. I really am under a big impression of this GX. It's fine in the city, it will do well enough on a highway with only wind protection needing some improvements like a taller windshield or a deflector. And damn, it is a true breakthrough for me. BMW S1000XR, you should feel fear. I'm giving the Suzuki GSX-S1000GX an 8 out of 10, counting in the fun factor already. I feel that this can be the perfect combination of what best adventure motorcycles can give us, along with what best sports bikes can provide. I'm very happy that I tried this crossover. I enjoy it, and I actually feel addicted to the point of willing to have it in my garage. So I highly recommend testing one if you guys ever feel like you would at least be interested in finding out what's so intriguing in sports bikes. So see you in the next video, and I may make a comparison of this bike and BMW S1000XR soon. See you there.